Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for the major stories in detail. The 18-year-old woman who was arrested following the deaths of 3 children and the injury of 2 others in a fire at Booby Drive, Kingston 11, is to appear in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court tomorrow. Sonoya Clark was charged with the offense of cruelty to a child in relation to the injury of 2 of the children. Detectives are awaiting a ruling from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to determine if additional charges will be laid. 1-year-old twins, Javon and Jivon Bennett, and 3-year-old Chrysant Maxwell died in the fire that destroyed their home on Saturday, January 27. 3-year-old Tadiki Bennett later died at hospital while being treated. Reports are that Miss Clark was left by her mom in charge of her younger siblings while the mother went to work. The 18-year-old, however, reportedly left the house with another minor in charge of the children, who included her 2-year-old twin girls, one of whom died in the blaze. A former firefighter and his family lost their house after he awoke to find his home in flames in St. Anne. CVM's Khadija Thomas tells us what happened.
Oscar Lawrence, who is the father of former Member of Parliament Othniel Lawrence, is now thanking God that he was awakened just in time to remove his wife, 2 grandchildren, and his 95-year-old father-in-law, who sustained burns to his body. The senior Lawrence says he was awakened by the heat of the flames, which engulfed all 4 bedrooms of his home during the night. Lawrence says the fire brigade responded quickly, but it was too late to save his home. He had to rely on assistance from friends and family, but no one could stop the fire.
I fought a lot of fires in my lifetime, 35 years of firefighting. Eventually left at the rank of a district officer. I have been to many fires, but this fire was exceptional because it engulfed very quickly. And we do not really ascertain the cause of the fire yet, which is being investigated by the St. Andrew Fire Department, which we are hoping that they'll give us a cause very shortly.
He says he's devastated that his home has been destroyed because it holds sentimental value.
All my children were raised here from a Member of Parliament. My son Alfred, Mark, and other siblings were raised here. They know of no other place as home. They always come to visit me every now and again, and just to realize that the memory is all gone. It's a big blow and headache to this.
Meanwhile, his son Othniel Lawrence says he will be meeting with his siblings to discuss the possible relocation of his parents.
We believe definitely that with all that is happening, we are hoping, we are still yet to see exactly if the insurance company, it was insured up to last year. We do not know at this point in time where we stand with it.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Business persons, including vendors in St. Elizabeth, Manchester and Clarendon, are being advised to look out for counterfeit currency in circulation. Based on the migration of wrongdoers from neighboring parishes, a senior cop in Manchester is warning residents to pay attention. More from Curlin Brown.
The issue of break-ins continues to be a challenge to policing in Manchester. Senior Superintendent Wayne Cameron, in updating councillors, notes that while his team tries to be proactive by increasing a presence at nights with a view of catching the culprits, they switch their activities.
The 30 break-ins that we have had so far since the start of the year, more than a half of that were committed during daylight. And so persons were either away from their residence for 3 days or a week or so, or even longer than that, or persons were away at work.
The thieves seem to be attracted to improving their access to the world illegally while using the many exit and entry points to the parish.
Flat screen televisions. And if you have a small one and a big one, they're going to take the bigger one. They have a lot of time on their hand to, especially in houses that are way off the main road, to cut your grill. We are cutting the grill as well, and cutting padlocks. So we are definitely just going to have to go harder this year again on the breakers in this parish, and seek the assistance of our neighboring parishes when they catch their breakers to alert us to that, because we know they cross borders.
And while there were 3 murders by the gun so far, the senior cop says 5 guns were recovered through increased raids, one of which resulted in the arrest of 8 persons from one household. However, 3 were from Trelawney. He says while some outsiders seek refuge, others, like a male and a female reportedly spotted driving around in a white Toyota Probox as if it's a taxi, have reportedly been pouncing on unsuspecting passengers.
We have repeatedly spoken to members of the traveling public that you take licensed taxis, red plate taxis. And it is even important that when you're going to get into these taxis, that you make a mental picture of those registration plates. Because we have people who are driving red plate taxis who are giving us challenges too.
Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, says crime is down in her constituency and there are other positives to report as plans are underway to help provide the community with potable water. CVM's Joel Croskill reports.
Speaking at the Palm Grove Community Centre in Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke provided insight into community consultations that took place throughout the community, starting with the availability of water.
Today, for example, we had a discussion also around the NWC and the issue around water. And what many of the persons were saying is that Water Commission refuses to actually give them a meter because they do not have a title for the land. And in some of the cases that they recounted today, they have been living on the land for generations. The individuals in whose name the title is, that's probably dating back 50, 60 years ago. These are family members coming down the generation line or other individuals who have lived there and whose families have lived there for 50 and 60 years.
Dr. Brown-Burke also spoke of some housing developments that were taking place in Majesty Gardens, which have the potential to raise property value in the area.
The members of the committee were also excited to learn or to discuss some of the housing projects that were started by the former Member of Parliament and former Prime Minister. So, for example, in Majesty Gardens, they have started the infrastructure work on a set of houses, units that should be built, which is a continuation of the housing project in Majesty Garden. And then there's also the Foreshore Estates that's also to come. They've started building the model unit, and persons are excited just to see that kind of vision for the community where they know that we are going to be having some additional housing solutions where they are going to be able to afford the homes.
Part of forging a safe and secure community includes the need to reduce crime and violence within Southwest St. Andrew, and steps have been taken in that regard.
The issue of violence is something that concerns us. We have noted a kind of reduction in it. We have been in discussions with the police. We have done a number of community walks with the police. We have done a number of consultations with the police as well. And the idea really is to get members in the community to build a better relationship with the police. We have seen increased policing, certainly in those troubled areas, and individuals are feeling a lot safer. Some areas are still tense. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we are working through those as well.
Joel Croskill, CVM Live.
Silence has fostered the climbing murder rate over time. That's the word from well-known Seventh-day Adventist pastor Glenn Samuels, who led the sermon for a mother and daughter murdered in St. James last year. Nika Lewis reports.
Am I my brother's keeper?
That's the question used to urge the grieving congregation to help the police with their criminal investigation at the Thanksgiving service for a mother and daughter who were gunned down last year in Cambridge, St. James, due to gang feud. The pastor explained using the Bible's first murder of a brother by another to remind those who weep that their tears are being recorded by the Creator.
We have gotten to this place of runaway murders in this country because we have failed to become our brother's keeper. What does it mean to be my brother's keeper? May I challenge us then in the next 7 minutes to take Cain's question sign and transform it into an exclamation mark. For if we dare to say, I am my brother's keeper, then there are some instructions by some reggae songs that we would not be guided by. Songs such as silence in violence.
It's that silence, he laments, that resulted in the escalation of crimes over time.
This adage of seeing no evil, hearing no evil, and speaking no evil is good only for monkeys. In school books only. But it is not good for the building of a better nation. We must become our brother's keeper. Because if today we are silent, tomorrow when we need someone to speak for us, there will be no one left to speak.
The funeral, which was moved from Retrieve to Anchovy in the parish, was heavily guarded and issued a noon cut-off time. While the mother and daughter are now laid to rest, the funeral service for the father and son murdered not long afterwards is expected to follow in short order. Nika Lewis, CVM Live.
The Press Association of Jamaica is calling on the Police High Command and Indicom to launch an immediate investigation into reports of an unprovoked assault by the police on newspaper photographer Rudolph Brown on Tuesday, February 13. Mr. Brown has reported to the PAJ that while in the Crossroads area, he witnessed a commotion apparently caused by attempts by the police to arrest a man. He started to use his phone to record the incident. On being told to stop by the police sergeant on occasion, he says he identified himself as a member of the media, both verbally and by showing his company ID card. Mr. Brown says he continued to record the proceedings and heard the police sergeant tell a constable to pepper spray him. He says the police constable sprayed pepper spray directly into his eyes, causing him severe pain and distress, which continued for hours and worsened later in the evening. Meanwhile, the police high command has directed the Inspectorate of Constabulary, the IOC, to investigate a video clip of the incident. The high command is also asking persons who witnessed the incident, as well as the maker of the video, to contact the IOC at 906-5325 or 754-8217. The JCF is reminding citizens of their rights and responsibilities when they are stopped or are being apprehended by the police under the Code of Conduct for Police-Citizen Relations in Jamaica. There's been another shaking in the island. A minor earthquake was felt in Jamaica this morning. Preliminary details are that the quake occurred at 6:35 a.m. The epicenter was near Chancery Hall in St. Andrew, and it had a magnitude of 3.1 and a focal depth of 11 kilometers. In the midst of wage negotiations with the government, the Jamaica Teachers Association's Roll of Honor Award presentation ceremony honored Herbert Morrison Principal Paul Adams as the 2017 awardee.
The 2017 awardee of the Jamaica Teachers Association Roll of Honor was announced at a ceremony steeped in the tradition of delivering encomiums to those who have given service beyond the call of duty.
We're gathered here this evening to honor a colleague who has indeed met and surpassed all the qualifying requirements to be awarded the Roll of Honor Award. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we honor one who represents and reflects the mission and vision of the JTA. It is my pleasure to announce that Mr. Paul Patrick Adams, twice president of the JTA and current principal of the Herbert Morrison Technical High School, is the 2017 recipient of the JTA's prestigious Roll of Honor Award.
The event, which was attended by a number of luminaries from the field of education, including former Minister of Education Burchell Whiteman, saw a wide range of topics affecting the profession addressed.
We all have to make our contribution to this social re-engineering and reconstruction which involves our boys and young men. Advocacy, personal encouragement, and active support through time spent face-to-face, online, in school, Sunday or Sabbath school, we all have to find or create opportunity to engage for change. Time is not on our side.
Meanwhile, another former Minister of Education, Reverend Ronald Thwaites, repeated a phrase that got him in some hot water in 2015.
The school has become, in Jamaica now, the principal institution for positive socialization. And most of us never signed up for that when we contracted to be teachers, and yet that is a cup which will not pass. And it will do us little good if we end up with the highest level of passes in all of the examinations, local and external. And now I'm not minister, I can say it. We have a generation of Lego beasts.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
It's time now for regional and international news with our reporter, Nika Lewis.
Happy Ash Wednesday to you all. Now, a few homes in a community in the south of Trinidad have been evacuated following at least 2 eruptions at the Devil's Woodyard mud volcano on Tuesday morning. The rumbling began around 4 a.m. at the volcano in Hindustan Village near New Grant, Princestown, and another eruption was reported after 9 a.m. The authorities say they will be monitoring the area and will be conducting air tests around the site where seismic activity was reported well after Tuesday's eruption. Meanwhile, farther afield, South African President Jacob Zuma has resigned. Here's the BBC.
The moment of decision came late when the former guerrilla fighter at last recognized he could not win. President Jacob Zuma addressed the South African nation and faced reality. I was just yards from him when he said the decisive words.
The ANC should never be divided in my name. I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
And with that statement, Jacob Zuma has brought to an end the most controversial period in the history of post-apartheid South Africa. History happening in a late-night statement, after a day in which it seemed he might still fight on.
Still overseas, 20 people have been shot in a high school shooting incident in Parkland, Florida, resulting in multiple fatalities.
Running for their lives, students flee classrooms in panic. Inside the 3-story building, hundreds of others lay hiding from a gunman on the loose. As they streamed out of school, some were still clutching their Valentine's Day balloons.
As soon as the fire alarm got pulled and kids were evacuating, I heard 5 pops. And I was like, that's not a drill. I was like, and we never did a drill like that.
We hear about this all the time, but we never expect it to happen right here in your neighborhood. Everybody knows around here is a safe place, and we don't expect this to happen here, but then when that happens, we're just taken aback to that.
Dozens of police cars sped to the scene. Paramilitary units moved in to confront the shooter. They carried out a wounded student, improvising emergency transport, and a street corner became an emergency room. The more badly injured was stretchered away, and then a suspect, handcuffed by police on the roadside. He's been identified as a former student, but there's no information about what may have triggered this attack.
And those were the top regional and international stories this Ash Wednesday. I'm Nika Lewis. Good evening.
Thanks, Nico. Well, those were the major stories for this evening. Join us later in the program for News Live in 5. But straight ahead is our panel discussion, and we examine calls to tackle white-collar crime, the British prison offer, Brexit, and other matters with the British High Commission.